Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Andrew Walker once again. This time, it's time for episode 2 of our Reddit reads. It is Tuesday, September 24th, 2019, and today's r slash is malicious compliance, where you follow the rules and you obey your bosses, but not to kind of the T that the boss wanted you to obey him to. Oh? Well, we got our first story already ready to go. It's called Never Leave a Spill. You got it. So, as you know, I am using naturalreaders.com to read this whole story because me trying to do that will just leave me tongue tied and out of breath. I do tend to have autism and have a bit of a trouble reading the same line twice or skipping over a line on accident. So, hopefully, this free to text will help me out here. So, here it is. Never leave a spill. You got it.
Quite some time ago I used to work at Walmart, and honestly it was by far the worst job I've ever had. I could go on for hours about all the horror stories I have from that place. One story in particular I feel is a good fit here. You see, the store I worked in had a rule that if you see a spill, you are to guard the area to keep customers from slipping and falling. You were not to leave the spill for any reason while you flagged down another employee so that they could fetch cleaning supplies. Only managers and the cleaning crew had radios. I understand the logic here, as a lawsuit would certainly cost much more than an hourly employee's time standing next to a spill until it was cleaned up. However, there are a few issues with this in practice. I worked the evening shift in the meat department, and most days I was the only person in my department.
Uh-oh.
I was situated between frozen foods and produce, which more often than not only had one-person shifts as well, but they also closed much earlier than my department. This meant that I was the only person in my corner of the store for about half of my shift. If I came across a spill, there was no telling how long I would have to wait around for another employee to come by, because there was literally nobody else working in or around my area. Also, being in the meat department, we had multiple cleaning stations all around. One was always a few steps away.
Oh boy.
One day while working alone I noticed a small spill. So I stood next to it per procedure for about 10 minutes. In this time nobody, customer nor co-worker, had even entered my view. I couldn't help but think how dumb this was, as I could see a cleaning station just on the other side of a bunker. I decided to throw in the flag and just go get the cleaning supplies and take care of it myself, because even if a customer did come around I could still see the spill and easily call out to them to watch their step. Unsurprisingly, I was able to make the round trip without any incidents. As I was cleaning it, a manager came walking up and took notice of me. "Manager, what happened here?"
It's a spill and you needed
Me,
to clean it
just
up.
a spill. I've got it all sorted. Manager, did you just happen to have cleaning supplies on you? Me, no, but they were just right there. I was able to fetch them without losing sight of the spill. Manager, that's not how we do things. Someone could have gotten hurt. Me, no, as I could have called to anyone that came near it. I was never more than a few steps away. Manager, doesn't matter. You should have stood next to the spill and waited for someone else to come by. This went on for a few minutes, but the manager was not budging, so I conceded. That was not good enough for him, as he then proceeded to write me up for negligence and unsafe work practices. I was livid, but I was also a college student and needed the job, so I just kept quiet and returned to my shift. A week or two later, as I was once again the only person working in my corner of the store, I happened upon another spill. This time I shrugged and decided to guard it as if my job depended on it. I checked my watch and noticed that I had about 3 hours left on my shift, and had a small laugh at the thought that I might be standing in that spot guarding a puddle instead of closing my department. 10 minutes passed. 30 minutes passed. 1 hour passed. Around this time I was bored out of my mind, but then I heard a call over the intercom system that made it so much more worth it. "We need an associate from the meat department to the back for a truck." This was followed by a few other calls for other departments for their trucks arriving as well. I started laughing out loud at this because I knew that this meant that the very few people that were likely to come by my department were now at the loading dock unloading trucks while I stood guard over my puddle. A few minutes passed before I heard the second call, "We need an associate from the meat department to the back for a truck." I just stood there counting the lights on the ceiling.
Oh boy.
1 hour left on my shift and there still had not been a single fellow employee walk by. I assumed everyone was starting to finish up their own trucks by this point and would likely soon have to start unloading my truck as well. I was watching the minutes go by in anticipation, trying to decide if someone would come find me before my shift ended or not. I got my answer 15 minutes before the end of my shift as the very same manager from before came storming through the meat department furious. We made eye contact and he stormed over to me and started yelling about how they have been calling for me to unload the truck and how they are now behind schedule and so on. Once he took a breath long enough for me to speak, I asked simply, "Can you go to a spill station and grab something to clean this up? I've been here a while now." He glanced down at the puddle next to me and I thought he was going to explode. "Manager, you mean to tell me that you didn't unload the truck because you were watching a spill?" Me, yes. "Manager, why didn't you just clean it up?" Me, but leaving the spill would be unsafe for any customers. "Besides, you wrote me up for doing that very thing recently, right?" The manager tossed his hands up in defeat and walked the 15 steps away to the nearest spill station and returned with supplies that he promptly gave me to clean the spill myself. "Manager, once you are done, go back to the loading dock and start on your truck." Me, "Sorry, I have only about 10 minutes left on my shift and as I've been standing here guarding the spill I never got my second break. So I'm going to the break room for a bit before clocking out. You'll need to find someone to close down my department as well." At this the manager just stomped off in a rage. I cleaned up the spill, played on my phone in the break room for a bit, and clocked out with a smile on my face. I know that the manager just made someone else do all the work and wasn't personally affected by this, but knowing that I could be a thorn in his side was enough for me.
Oh, this is where we need to start talking about some Walmart policies. If there is, what is going on in Walmart that has one employee in an entire corner section of the store? If something spilled, they can't go to a cleaning supply. They have to stop what they're doing and stand in front of a puddle, and they cannot move until they can get an employee to get the cleaning supplies. They can't get it themselves. What kind of malarkey is this? And you're gonna yell at the damn employee for trying to do their job? Walmart, you need to get your goddamn shit together. Come on, man. Alright, it's bad enough you ain't paying a lot of people barely minimum wage. But Jesus Christ, people. Have some freaking decency and competence up in this joint. It's not that hard. Okay, I've calmed down a little bit. Sorry, Walmart kind of made me rage a little bit. Our next story in our r/malicious compliance is called "Refuse to Give Me My Money, I Refuse to Let You Make Any." Ha ha! And this is an X post from /ProRevenge. That sounds like something I'm going to be delving at tomorrow, so y'all keep an eye out for a video for that. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me go and get text-to-speech running.
"Refuse to give me my money, I refuse to let you make any." I owned a sign company. I received a phone call from someone at a local mall. He was opening a restaurant in the food court. The catch was that he wanted to be open in 2 weeks for Black Friday, the busiest shopping day of the year.
Makes sense.
I met with him and mall management at the same time so that we could discuss ideas and get approval at the same time to speed up production. Got everything okayed from his big, overhead backlit menu sign, smaller signs on both walls, and signs for both registers. All in all, it was going to be a pretty large order. I typically get a 50% deposit, but the customer said something about international money transfers and the mall management jumped right in to explain that payments were taking a couple of weeks to process, but everything they charged him had been paid. Because I had been doing a lot of work in the mall and I was trying to help them get this guy open, I agreed to do it without the deposit. I did layouts, he approved them, I showed him samples, he approved them. I got everything finished and installed the Tuesday before he needed them. That's when things went downhill fast.
Uh-oh.
He immediately started complaining that the material was wrong, even though he'd seen samples, and it wasn't what he wanted. Then he complained that the graphics were wrong, even though he'd approved them.
The fuck?
He complained that the prices were wrong even though they all matched the menu he provided. Wednesday afternoon I called him again and his wife answered. She cheerfully told me that I could take down my damn signs, they weren't paying for them.
Oh boy.
They had ordered signs cheaper from someone else but they couldn't get them ready in time, and as soon as the other signs were ready mine were going in the trash. So, realizing that I'd screwed myself by doing the job without a deposit, I hung everything on her little side comment that I could take down my damn signs. Thursday I had a delightful Thanksgiving lunch with my family. We watched football, we laughed, we enjoyed the day. I took my wife and kids home, loaded up a ladder, and joyfully went to the mall. I'd done enough after-hours work at the mall that I knew there would be a door open somewhere and people in the large stores getting ready for the Black Friday crowds. I went in, tossed my ladder over the restaurant counter, and started taking down the signs. A couple of merchants in the mall asked me if the place was already closing. I told them the story, and the next thing I know they are helping me take down the signs.
Good on y'all. Good on y'all.
In 30 minutes the place went from looking like a fully opened, ready to rock restaurant to looking closed.
Uh-oh.
I went home and slept like a baby. When I turned on my phone at 7:30 on Black Friday, I'd already had 15 missed phone calls from the restaurant owner, his wife, and the mall management. I called the mall management and they weren't happy. I told them the whole story, they still weren't happy with me but they understood. I waited 15 minutes before the restaurant owner called screaming in the phone demanding that I return with the signs. I politely told him that I needed the full amount, plus the cost of reinstallation, plus an extra $50 for working on an off day. He screamed at me, I hung up.
Yeah, fuck you.
He called back once more and demanded that I bring them back and he would pay me the next week. I said no, I needed cash. He screamed at me again, I hung up. I avoided the mall because screw Black Friday, but from what I hear it was comical. His entire backlit sign was nothing but lit up bulbs. He'd handwritten a menu on an old box and taped it to the front of the counter. Every restaurant in the food court was slammed all day and nobody would even take his free samples.
Oh my lord.
He closed mid-afternoon after realizing nobody was going to buy. He went through the entire shopping weekend with no signs and no business. The best part was that 2 weeks later when his new signs from India finally arrived, they were the wrong size.
Oh!
You, Mr. Restaurant owner, for ordering signs from me that you knew you weren't going to pay for because you'd already ordered them from someone else.
Oh! Karmic justice, ladies and gentlemen. Some karmic justice. You decided to screw over an American businessman when you could have gotten all these American-made signs, all that blah, 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 blah. Then you come up with some sort of bullshit saying, oh, I can't do the 50% deposit and all that shit. And then when they found out, oh, we could get it cheap from India, screw you, American. This American was like, fuck you right back, and got permission from his wife and took the goddamn signs now, knowing he ain't gonna make shit. And he even got some of the fellow businessmen to help him out. Good on ya! Good on y'all! Woo! Okay. Well, maybe there's a lesson to be learned. Don't fuck with American businesses. Especially when they're competing against foreign ones. Catch y'all later. Alright, so our next story in r/malicious compliance. A dad at a preschool I taught told me how to calm his daughter down, but I knew it wouldn't work out like he thought it would. Let's see how this one plays out. Let's go and get natural readers to go ahead and play this.
I took a few years off of college to figure out what I wanted to major in, and during that time I worked at a really great preschool. This was a Montessori school in a really high-end area, so the parents were all pretty wealthy. A significant number of the children had live-in nannies and the staff, and I saw the kids more often than their parents got to. For the most part, the parents were extremely nice and respectful, albeit a little absent. I was a guide in a 3 to 6
It happens.
classroom and absolutely adored the kids in my class. In the mornings we had hookup drop-off lines where cars lined up and staff removed the children from car seats and walked them to their classrooms. This made the transition from home to school much easier than if the parents walked their child in. It also kept parents from lingering in the classroom and disrupting the children's work cycle. In Montessori schools, when children are doing their individualized activities in the classroom, that is called work cycle, too much. For children that could walk, they were also expected to carry their own backpack and lunch boxes.
Oh, come on, they're three
Some
to
days,
six years
of course,
old.
kids just had bad days and we would help carry their things in. One morning, one of my 3-year-olds was having a rough transition and sobbed the entire time we were getting out of the car. Her dad was talking on Bluetooth and seemed frustrated with the situation, but didn't say anything to me. I got the child out the car still sobbing and I asked her if she wanted to carry her backpack, and that I could carry her lunchbox. She seemed to like this compromise and handed me her lunchbox while I helped her put her backpack on. She is still sniffling a little but calming down overall. The dad, still talking on his Bluetooth, pulls up to drive away but rolls his window down and gestures at me. Child and I stop and I look at him curiously, thinking he was going to tell his daughter he loved her or goodbye. Instead, he snappily tells me, well, if you would just give her her lunchbox to carry she would stop crying, and then he looked expectantly at the lunchbox. I didn't want to piss this dad off, but I knew damn well his little girl did not feel like carrying her lunchbox. I need to go into a little more detail here because these were not small lunchboxes. They were big, bulky, and probably weighed about half as much as some of these small children. They had to be big enough to fit every bit of a child's lunch in individualized glass Tupperware containers. Every child carried the same lunchbox, and the lid could snap on and off, but it wasn't supposed to. Anyway, I looked at the father and said, of course, I'll let her carry it, and hand the girl the lunchbox. In a complete shriek, she yells, I don't want this, and proceeds to slam the lunchbox into the concrete walkway, causing the lid to break off and all of her lunch items to go rolling around the parking lot. And she immediately starts sobbing again. I simply looked up to make eye contact with Dad and he looked so embarrassed. He didn't say a word and he just slowly rolled up his passenger side window and drove away. After morning hookup was over we had to call him to bring his daughter another lunch because her main portions were ruined. Edit, it was called hookup because we would hook up the car seats for the children when they would get in and out of the car. It was just the pickup drop-off line, but that's what it was always called at our school, LOL.
Okay, so I understand that a lot of these rich parents, they have a lot of shit that they need to be doing for their business. But can you pay attention just once to your goddamn kids? I mean, that's just freaking ridiculous. My mom and dad, albeit they're divorced, were always working nearly 24/7. Mom was working all these crazy sort of jobs. She was a dispatcher at one point for Mission Petroleum. She was an assistant to a lawyer. She had her own cleaning service. She was working at Macy's, all that stuff. And my dad was a truck driver. But they've always had time set up for their own children. I mean, you would at least know just a little basic on how to properly take care of his child. He clearly didn't. I mean, she had a whole plan set in place so that the girl would get the backpack and she would take the lunch, or he. I don't know why I used a male voice on that one. But anyway, unimportant. The dad says, "No, you need to do this my way." So they did, and she just threw like a ginormous tantrum. I could definitely tell how 3-year-olds tantrums work. We just had my 3-year-old nephew come on over, and we ended up watching him for nearly the entire day, including spending the night Sunday night. And although he is a very well behaved 3-year-old, he does often get into these terrible twos, these tantrums, and all that stuff. I mean, he is a toddler. He's still struggling to understand the concept of no, even though my sister and her boyfriend is properly raising him with the correct style of parenting. But even then, it will happen. It will happen. You just got to have the patience with these kids. That's probably why I'm never going to have kids myself, because having to help raise a child just for even 1 month is enough to tear the hair out your skull. And that's probably why I'm losing a lot of hair right here. I'm only 26 years old, ladies and gentlemen. And it's to the point where I really like long, luxurious hair, but I can't do it anymore because I'd look like a creep if I tried. Even if I did the whole long hair, no beard, I would look even worse. So this is probably as close to my age as I will ever look. It's just real crazy. I don't know what is up with that. Anyway, I think we got a couple of more r/malicious compliance stories, so let's go and get started on those. Alright, we got another one. This one's actually a quaint small one. It's called Karen Wants Her ID Checked. Why? I don't know. Let's go ahead and give it a go.
I work in a casual fine dining restaurant in a downtown area. Prices aren't crazy but high enough that we don't get a super young crowd. I would say the average age of our dinner crowd is 30 to 60, although it varies more on the weekend. I only include this information so you understand why I didn't initially ask for identification, even though you should always check.
Of course.
Thursday night a table of 4 comes in for early dinner. 2 Karens and their daughters. Excellent. I'm ready for them to split entrees and tip me 15%. Not the worst type of table if we're being honest, but nonetheless. They order a pitcher of sangria and I tell them I'll be right back with that for them, to which Mama Karen says to me, "You really aren't going to check these girls' IDs? Her birthday was just last month. Aren't you supposed to check anyone who looks under 40? She is correct, of course. That I should have asked for identification even though the girls were with their mothers, and I was being lazy by assuming they were of age since their moms did not stop them from ordering drinks. I agree with her and tell her that I actually am supposed to check all IDs regardless of age and proceed to look at all 4 of the ladies' IDs. Unfortunately for Mama Karen, her birthday was a few days previously and her ID had expired. In the state of Michigan, it is illegal to serve alcohol to anyone with an expired ID regardless of age, so I had to deny Mama Karen a glass for the sangria, while her daughter and friend shared a pitcher. I didn't really have malicious intentions, however, it felt good that Karen's antics backfired on her. Edit: I didn't include details of Karen throwing a fit when I denied her a glass of sangria. She informed me that she, a business owner, is more aware of the law than I, a mere server, could ever be. I simply couldn't just do my job and bring her a glass. My generation doesn't respect elders and blah blah blah. Her daughters were a little embarrassed, I believe, but I tried to move past it and serve them the rest of their meal normally. Karen kept huffing and puffing but said no when I offered to bring a manager over.
Wow. Hold on a minute. The server went to offer the manager to Karen and she rejected it? What? Okay. So apparently I don't know what it is in the state of Michigan. I do kind of have an expired ID. I don't drive at all, so. But last I checked, I think Texas does allow expired IDs as long as it's no more than 2 years expired. I gotta go get my new ID going. Anywho, Michigan, even if it's just a couple days off, it looks like you're not allowed to use your expired ID and you can't serve alcohol to those with expired identifications. Now, I remember being 21 years old and looking a lot less younger than what I do now. I always constantly get asked whether or not if I had my ID on me. And then just a couple of, I think yesterday I ordered a glass of margarita for lunch, and nobody said anything about my ID. That was before my haircut, by the way, so I kind of looked way older. But wow, Karen, she just had her. And if you are a business owner and you know more than a mere server, then you should have probably not requested that their IDs be checked if you knew yours was expired. I mean, if I was in that situation and I had my two daughters with me, I don't have any kids, by the way, this is just hypothetical. I had an expired ID and everybody else's was theirs, and they forget to check their ID, and the same Texas laws applied to Michigan, I would keep my fucking mouth shut, okay? Alright, we're gonna do one more, and I think we're gonna kill it for the day. Alright, our last r/malicious compliance of the day is actually a combination of malicious compliance and pro-revenge. A kind of odd story, and it is a pretty long one, but I did look it over, skimmed it a little bit. I didn't read the whole thing because I don't tend to do that. See my iFunny stream. Anywho, I did kind of find it to be absolutely funny, so let's go ahead and give it a go.
This will be a long one. It involves both r/malicious compliance and r/pro revenge in one story. The compliance and revenge were not my doing, but it was done in my name. I just kind of sat back and watched the events unfold around me when a government employee stepped in to assist me. A few years ago, I lived with a roommate in a small house. It was a cozy home in a nice area, but the crazy landlady didn't like to do repairs. This led to a lot of small issues around the home. Crazy landlady was also, well, crazy.
Oh shit.
We would find notes and boxes of chocolates in our kitchen every holiday or occasion, times when she would just walk in when nobody was home and without notice. Nice and creepy at the same time, sums up how we felt about her our first year. She would limit all personal contact with us, and stayed about 5 or more feet away anytime we met her. She also demanded that we travel to the opposite side of the city to pay rent in cash without a receipt at her home. I obviously objected to this, but my roommate was the leaseholder and didn't want to rock the boat. Her lack of repairs eventually led to flooding issues that could have been easily fixed.
Uh-oh.
The drain was clogged with roots and the toilet perpetually filled with water due to a broken bobber. This combined to 2 separate major floods. First one, it rained water into the basement. The second flood, the drain gave out altogether and 2 feet of water flooded the basement. I woke up to being electrocuted, smoke filling the room, and I had to fight through shocks to unplug everything.
Holy shit!
Here's where things went downhill. We received a water bill for around $3,500, saying it was a final notice after failing to pay any of the bill in the year we had lived in the house.
The hell?
Our water was shut off the same day. We didn't even know we had to pay water and had never received a single bill. My roommate found a note in the kitchen, presumably from the old leaseholder, with the water company phone number listed on it. We figured we missed it and prepared to take the financial blame for it. We still had no water though, and it couldn't be connected with an outstanding bill. The bill was in my roommate's name, so we made a plan. Switching the lease to my name, lease renewal time was upon us, would let us put the bill in my name, giving us both running water and time to pay the old bill. We called crazy landlady, and she told me just to sign the lease papers she sent my roommate.
Oh boy.
Unfortunately, my roommate had other plans. He
Okay.
decided to take off, leaving me with a lease I couldn't afford on my own. I did the math and realized I would be bankrupt in a few months on my own without a roommate. I went to the government agency in my area that deals with these sort of situations and explained the situation.
Oh boy.
They said they would look into it and I left. They called her and it shook the hornet's nest. Halfway home, I started getting voicemails from crazy landlady. Note, I only text, so my voicemail was never activated. It just says my number, then a beep, no name. Crazy landlady hello 555-5151, too scared to put your name up? How many people are you hiding from?
The hell?
You're not hiding from me, you effing piece of st.
Oh, come on!
I know roommate didn't leave, you just want to stick me with that effing flood bill again. Well, guess what? I just called around and I had all of his debt put in your name. Since you went to get out of your lease, you're effed. They're going to make you give me both nickels you rub together. You want out? Fine, but pay the entire thing off. You owe me $12,000 by tomorrow. I'll own you when this is done, you effing lowlife. Now be a man and pay your effing bills. Exact transcript from her first message, minus my real number and roommate's name.
Of course.
The messages continued, each starting with angrily repeating my phone number as if it was somehow evidence of my corruption. I doubled back to and played them the messages. This is where the hero of the story comes in. I'll call her the maliciously compliant hero. Maliciously compliant hero.
Oh boy.
Maliciously compliant hero called the water company on speakerphone, discovering that crazy landlady had, in fact, tried to have them switch my roommate's debt into my name. They obviously couldn't do that. If debt worked like that, everyone could just pick the richest person and offload debt to them without permission or authority. Crazy
That's
landlady
true,
even
that is
tried lying
true.
to the water company.
Wow, really?
Telling them I was the actual previous leaseholder but backpedaled after being asked to provide documents stating such. Maliciously compliant hero called crazy landlady, wanting to try to negotiate a deal between us. Crazy landlady kept it brief and to the point before hanging up. Crazy landlady, you signed a lease, you have to follow it. The lease states that you have to pay the entire lease out if you want out. Either way, you owe me $12,000 and the water company another $3,500.
Wow.
I was upset, but maliciously compliant hero seemed even angrier than me. Maliciously compliant hero collected my paperwork and sent me on my way while she went over it all. She warned me that the situation was in crazy landlady's favor at the moment overall, but of course, I had nothing to do with the water bill. I had already called them myself the day my roommate left, only to be told I wasn't even authorized to pay it if I could. Only my former roommate could pay. Still, crazy landlady seemed hell-bent on transferring it. I think crazy landlady confused them, telling her the bill was in my name going forward with it was transferred retroactively. A few days later, maliciously compliant hero called me back to her office. When I arrived, she had the biggest st-eating grin on her face.
Uh-oh.
Maliciously compliant hero dash, is this the only documents you signed? Are you sure? Are you absolutely positive? It turns out that the documents I signed were not a lease. They were a lease renewal agreement. I was young, it was my first lease, and I didn't know any better, as crazy landlady used this as the main lease document, without attaching the original for me to read the terms.
Uh-oh.
It was considered a vague contract with no stipulations attached. All vagueness in a contract goes in favor of the one signing it, not the drafter.
Uh-oh. Woo!
Maliciously compliant hero looked at the lease crazy landlady gave them from my roommate, same thing. Maliciously compliant hero called crazy landlady, while I sat with my own st-eating grin, watching in awe. I will skip maliciously compliant hero explaining the situation to
Uh,
crazy landlady and jump to the good parts. Maliciously compliant hero dash as the original lease is not considered a part of the agreement, it appears that both of your former tenants paid into various things that were not required of them. All of these fees will need to be refunded. Key deposits, security deposits, the
oh
deposit
boy.
of the last month of rent, fees for use of the garage, and all utility fees. There is also no penalty for your tenant negating his contract, though you are still entitled to keep the payment you received for the first month rent on the new lease as agreed. Crazy landlady, what the hell is this? The other agent said I won. Put your boss on. Maliciously compliant hero dash I'm sorry, but I am the supervisor on shift today. The other agent you spoke with didn't have access to all of the paperwork needed to understand the situation. Crazy landlady, I'm not paying that lowlife a dime. This is effing criminal.
Oh boy.
Cue the glorious line of malicious compliance from our maliciously compliant hero.
Here we go.
Maliciously compliant hero dash you signed the lease, you have to follow it. The lease states that your tenants only had to pay rent. You owe Mr. just over $2,000, plus an additional $3,000, as he has provided receipts showing that he has been paying your electricity bill in his own name under false pretenses for the past year. Since the lease is about to go into effect, you are also required to ensure the home is in a livable state. By tomorrow, it needs to have the mold damage found by our inspectors fixed, the water needs to be running, and various other health and safety concerns need to be addressed. You've had nearly 2 weeks to address the concerns we sent you, so we trust they will be fixed by now. If the home is unlivable at the start of the lease, you will be required to pay for accommodations at a hotel for until the repairs are complete. And cue the pro revenge.
Whew.
Remember how crazy landlady was so insistent on switching my roommate's water bill debt to my name? I was able to sit and listen in while maliciously compliant hero called the water company to do the impossible to crazy landlady.
Oh boy.
My roommate's debt was transferred to crazy landlady after they gave them the appropriate documents justifying it, of course.
Oh boy.
Crazy landlady was livid but reimbursed me. She only paid me back what I paid her directly, I never ended up getting the rest back from her. Honestly, it was water under the bridge to me and I felt she made herself suffer enough already anyway. I knew she could afford to pay me back what I had just given her, but I didn't want to risk hurting her family over the rest either. The water bill needed to be paid in full too, or it would risk her service at her own home.
Wow.
Though I skipped most of it to save time and space, crazy landlady harassed me numerous times during the 2 weeks leading up to my lease taking effect. By the end, police warned her to avoid harassing me, the water company, and the agent she spoke with at the, as each was close to filing charges against her. I never saw anyone in the story again. I assume maliciously compliant hero is still running things like a true hero at her office. Crazy landlady never contacted me again but told the neighbors and new tenants I was a lowlife who ran out on my bills. Funny, since she still owes me money. I haven't seen or heard from my former roommate since, though I do hope he is doing well, all things set aside. Crazy landlady owes him money too if he ever checks up on it though. I'm doing fine. Found cheaper rent, used the difference to pay for college courses. Another layer of revenge, improving your life when others want nothing more than to see you fail. Asterisk reposted, due to the initial post violating the abbreviation rules. No more acronyms or abbreviations. Sorry and thanks for all your upvotes and the award on the initial posting and on the support on this one. Asterisk edit, fixed minor mistakes and endnotes.
Woo! Okay, so apparently Crazy Landlady was trying to pull some really messed up, just straight up ratchet shit on the OP and his roommate, but you got to give it up to the government agent. She pulled off the impossible and put the debt all on her. Oh my god. I don't know what the hell was up with the roommate. Why did he skip out on OP? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But and also OP and roommates, why didn't you pursue her more? She deserved that after that shit she pulled off. That's what I would have done. I would have made her suffer. I don't like making her family suffer, but she chose her actions and she will choose the consequences. Okay, well, that does it for another edition of Reddit Reads of the Day. I'm Andrew Walker. Don't forget to like this video, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon when I upload more videos. I have another meme browsing of the day and another Reddit read tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching this show, and I'll see you next time.